Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stuart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Stuart, and we got, once again, Larry coming on board. We've got a very interesting show tonight. There's so much going on, and I'm beginning to wonder if there's not something very nefarious plan being hatched upon the entire American people. And one of the reasons I say that is because if you look at where all of these leaks are theoretically coming from, the CIA, the NSA, and the intelligence agencies, well, they're all, how do we say, basically Masonic. Hi, Larry. How are you doing?
Hello, Stuart. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. What is your take on the overall? This is almost like, are we going to even have an election?
Yeah, it's very interesting. And what's interesting, Fox also has started full-time coverage from now to Election Day. I mean, the whole weekend's going to be full of 24/7 coverage, and it's almost like something's going on. There was a very interesting, when you started out talking about the emails and things. There was a very interesting report came out today, which I posted. It's from the Daily Mail of UK. Julian Assange, in an interview at the Ecuadorian Embassy in London, says that Trump won't be allowed to win the election, that the Clinton donors fund the rigged election completely, and he says that the emails show the same donors funding the Clinton Foundation and ISIS. And of course, we just had the reports of terror coming the day before the election that began to hit the airwaves today.
Well, I think this has been set up, and obviously some time ago, to me anyway, the Clinton cartel and the Obama people would have known that there was probably going to be a release of information. Now, the New World Order is not above sacrificing their own to a higher cause. The higher cause, of course, bring America down and bring in the New World Order. Out of chaos comes order, a Masonic motto. So it makes me wonder precisely what is going on. Now, you've been a police officer for many, many years. They have pictures, evidently. They have emails. And yet, as far as I know, nobody's been arrested. Now, if you were shown as a police officer pictures like they have or emails like they have, would you not go out and immediately arrest the person involved?
Well, let me say something here, Stuart, which is very interesting, and I'm kind of just leave this open-ended question or comment if you want to make one. But the way most of the laws of each individual state are now, you have the federal laws, and the president and the Attorney General can sway prosecution or even, I suppose, arrest federally. However, if any of these laws are broken that would be in a state jurisdiction at any point in any state, that state law enforcement agency, which usually the sheriffs control, or the chief law enforcement officer of that state, they can arrest the individual. They can arrest them on view, so to speak. In other words, if they have the information and they see this going on, they know this occurred, and they believe that individual did it, they can arrest them, and then they can jail them, and then they go before a judge, a magistrate, to set for either a preliminary hearing or a trial date, depending on the court system. But, all throughout the country, the local law enforcement agencies or state agencies can take a stand and arrest the violators of law.
So how come nothing is happening and Hillary is out free if they got all these pictures and they got all these emails? It seems like Now, I did hear a story that the Department of Justice, one of Obama's cronies in this coup attempt against the United States, has stonewalled or told to stand down the New York chief of police, who said he was going to release this or he was going to arrest, because the laws that were violated that he's concerned with were New York state laws. And that involved child sex, even, I guess, really young girls, from what I can gather from all the emails, and all kinds of crimes, and yet they're not doing anything.
Well,
it's just rhetoric.
You've got to remember the mindset, though. You remember, Stuart, I told you when in law enforcement I began to observe that they were changing it from to protect and serve the people to them and us. And you got to remember, since that time began, federal government has taken over, mentally anyway, in a mental situation, they have taken over the police agencies of this entire nation and shown them how they wanted policy to read to direct the officers in their arrest. But I'm telling you this, Stuart, any of those states, if the law has been violated, that state, there is nothing preventing that state officer from arresting an individual, nothing at all. And some cases you can do it without a warrant. In some cases, all you need to do is go file a probable cause, get a warrant, and go get them. I mean, but the mindset of police, though, remember, has changed and become politicized to where no more does police agencies have war on crime. They basically politicize everything, and they follow the policies sent down from, I guess, the controller, the guy pulling all the strings on the puppet, way up high.
So it just seemed odd to me that it's rhetoric. I mean, here we have Comey, who's obviously sitting on all kinds of evidence. Now we have the New York chief of police going on, and I guess New York City chief of police, I think it is, publicly, basically, saying, look, we got it. And now I read he's been told to stand down on it. So that tells me that the feds, even though this is a state crime and it took place in the state of New York, don't want any of this out. So we got a real ruler against ruler, like Jeremiah says, going on now, full blast.
Yeah, well, Stuart, one of the interesting things, too, is the fact that I was watching Lou Dobbs the last few nights, and he just continually just refers to the Clintons as the Clinton cartel. And, even Rudy Giuliani has said, this is a crime syndicate. This is, he said, I could file cases against this cartel, any day, any hour, yesterday or today. And, but what you're seeing, Stuart, is I think we're beginning to see the breakdown. People are realizing that certain people are lawless without consequences in America, that it's not, to protect and serve the American people. It's literally to protect and serve a few rich people at the top. And, George Soros rules in that type of situation. But I think what you're saying, ruler against ruler, we're going to see that play out probably in the next few days and even maybe after the election, because I think you're beginning to see people that are really patriotic, that are beginning to stand up and not fall under this submission theory, out of Washington, D.C., and realize that, that people can do their job. You don't have to have the permission of the President of the United States to fight crime, especially in a local area. But what you're going to see, Stuart, is now will the states continue to submit to a total corrupt entity called Washington, D.C., or will the states begin now to fill prophecies of individuals that have prophesied? We know a number of them that have said the states are going to begin to break away from a federal government that's totally corrupt.
Yeah, this is, well, of course, ruler against ruler. In Jeremiah, it says a ruler against ruler, and then violence in the land. So I suppose, if you go into the bots, I was listening to Cliff High's latest. He had it up on YouTube. He was interviewed on a radio show. But he was saying that they do expect confusion and some sort of a breakdown. And now, when I was talking to you off air, there have been reports of possible terrorism issued by the FBI, as far as I understood it.
Well, that's the reports. This began with Debka File in Israel, and I'll just read one of their breaking news reports today. Said FBI probing major terror attack planned for the day before the U.S. election. Terror attacks in multiple states just before the day of the 2016 election, which we're talking about Monday. And then there's more reports that it began coming out of there, and then Fox reported, said U.S. intelligence agencies warning of possible Al-Qaeda or ISIS terror attacks within the U.S. on Monday, November the 7th. And then the Deos had already posted that there were fears of a false flag event possibly coming, and that's when they stated the report about National Guardsmen in multiple states getting calls up beginning last Saturday, in the morning, and multiple military convoys departing multiple bases throughout the USA. That was from the Deos. And then today we've had more reports confirming it. Says terror attack warning for New York, Texas, and Virginia, as U.S. intel officials report terror groups could be ready for terror incidents the day before the U.S. election to bring chaos to America. So it's out there, and it actually they're showing it on the TV news too, and reporting to people to be warned.
Okay, so we know that ISIS is the Clinton cartel. George Soros, Clinton, that group, Obama, they formed all this. So it wouldn't be ISIS, would it? It would be the Clinton cartel that's performing the violence to stop the election. Would that not be a logical assumption? I know assumption's not a good name, but...
Well, we can use the word presume. We would presume that it might be. We appear to have the connections now, and I know everybody hates hearing that connections come from WikiLeaks or Julian Assange, but they certainly do. And there are reports in the background that a lot of the WikiLeaks, and of course, a lot's been blamed on Russia, but Julian Assange said it isn't Russia. And, the background static is that it's some individuals in the three-letter agencies that released this. And so we do have a ruler against ruler taking effect even in Washington, D.C. itself, between agencies, such as the FBI and the CIA and the DOJ. I mean, there's this thing is really squaring off to be problems. And if I ever heard any word that was strikingly true, it was years ago you began talking about the rich men, and you just mentioned George Soros, and then also at the same time we've got the Clinton group, the Clinton cartel, and ruler against ruler. I think we're beginning to see all these beginning to play out, and the word chaos with the bots pretty much covers it all.
Yeah, and they were pretty blunt about it. Now, Cliff High also said that what they're reading in their immediacy data is that on the 9th, something is going to happen on the economic front. Now, I know these guys are really way off on their dating, so we got to have take it with a grain of salt. But basically, that something would occur on the 9th that would show the beginning of a steep dive on the monetary side of things, that this whole thing is going to slip over into the money markets and the stock market, et cetera, et cetera. So this is going to get very interesting. I have a vision that I got. Somebody sent it to me I'm going to read part of this. It says, not much time remains. This is the Lord speaking according to this vision. Before great change comes to your nation. My prophets, my watchmen, have valiantly sounded the alarm. Many have listened and prepared. Many more ignored and reject my warnings. I have spoken clearly. Listen to this. Chaos, destruction, heartache, and woe. But still, millions continue business as usual. November 8 will bring great change to this nation, but it will not be a change welcomed by all. Those with eyes to see and ears to hear will recognize the truth from lies, and they will prepare. Others will continue as before until their lives become a tangled mess from which they cannot escape, for still they refuse the goodness of their Creator God. I am the one who redeems, delivers, and heals. Man is broken. Sinful man gropes in darkness. Not much time left for repentance. Keep hearing that warning all the time, don't we, Larry? Not much time left. Soon, very soon, men will shake a fist at the Holy One and curse the day of their birth. Man has traveled too long on a dead-end road of destruction. America, your nation will soon belch out violence unimagined in your past. Hearts will cry, beg for reprieve, but without any repentance. Freedoms are eroding. Evil prevails, yet man continues as before. Little concern given to the future as man lives in the wickedness of the present. This election is a sham. Evil dominates as millions have bowed their knee to Baal, bowing to her demands. Your rejection of God has created a void, a vacuum of truth. Now evil resides. The void, the vacuum, has been filled to overflowing with the wicked and perverse among you. Your days are numbered. Lack of the protection of God has left this nation indefensible, vulnerable, and broken. Wow. Judgment Day approaches. What will your response be to the chaos? How will you react to the persecution? Have you enough strength to finish the task that has been set before you? Tell my people, do not grow weary in well-doing, for you will reap if you faint not. Your treasures are laid up in heaven to cleave not to the things of this world, for they will quickly pass away. So there you go. What do you think of that one?
Oh, that's pretty heavy. That's really heavy. You know, there was some reports come out today on Fox Business, who monitors the markets, and they are saying that the fix basically has been in for Hillary Clinton, and that all the markets and Wall Street are already set to go through Election Day with her being the victor. And they're saying that they're concerned that if by chance there's a Trump victory, that the markets will go south quickly, and that might fit in with what the scenario you're talking about.
So they're trying every move they can to get people not to vote for Trump. Oh, if you vote for Trump, surely there's just going to be a collapse. There's going to be this, there's going to be that. So where will they stop with this thing, Larry? I mean, how far are they ready? Are they ready to start a nuclear war just to cover up their crimes? Is that how deeply entrenched this is?
Well, we see that developing very quickly, not only in the Baltic states, but also in the Middle East. I mean, it appears they've got two about ready to go now, and it could get worse. I hear that North Korea is about ready to set off another explosion and maybe fire some more missiles. So, you know, this is building everywhere. I mean, it really is.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, we're supposed to have all these things converging. When you see all these things, lift up your head, for your redemption draweth nigh. I guess that's the only thing that Christians can actually hang on to are these promises. We talked about Glaserson. Now, this is interesting to me in view of all the stuff that Hillary's going to get elected. Then we have the bots. Trump is going to win by a landslide. Rabbi predicts Trump will win and usher in the second coming. In two separate sets of Bible codes, published 3 months apart, International Bible Codes expert Rabbi Glaserson shows evidence he has found that declares Donald J. Trump will win next week's presidential election. Trump's victory, Glaserson said, is directly connected to his support for Israel. The first table was published in July, the second last week. He found Donald in Hebrew next to the Hebrew word for president. He also found an abbreviation for the Hebrew words for the United States. Glaserson also found codes that point to both November 8 and November 9, the date of the election for the first day Trump would be president-elect if he should win. The rabbi quotes the book of Isaiah. This is the interesting part because you're the one who brought up the Cyrus factor. The rabbi quotes the book of Isaiah and the story of Cyrus, which has been frequently referenced by evangelical faith leaders who have given their support to the Republican presidential nominee. The code words also reference the Hebrew words for chosen or elected and love for Israel. Trump has made it clear he has a deep love for Israel and would protect it if elected next week. Well, of course, Hillary and that group want to terminate Israel. So this is interesting. So where are we at? God's hand is actually and really upon Trump. Maybe that's why he's still alive. What do you think?
Well, we're kind of shocked at the resiliency that he's had. And what's interesting, too, two things that people don't know linking Israel with this U.S. election is that Donald Trump has told the government of Israel that if he is elected, he will move the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem. And something that's not been told, too, Times of Israel reported a few days ago that Donald Trump had sent a handwritten note to the Western Wall in Jerusalem. Now, that's something that's very interesting because, I've done that a couple of times for specific reasons. And
yes,
there are other people that do the same thing, and I guess for for quite a while, people have been doing that. But what's so interesting, too, is the fact that this Lance Wallnau that wrote the book God's Chaos Candidate and the American Unraveling,
yes,
he basically also has made some statements, about Isaiah 45 and of course, we talked about this earlier on, even before the Isaiah 45 came out, when we were talking about Daniel. And,
yes,
we've been speaking some of this for a while. I would have to say that one of the interesting things, too, that Wallnau comment that he made that, is very interesting is the fact that he said a lot of the churches had problems with Donald Trump. They would even had trouble with Cyrus the Persian because they don't think that when, God's grace covers an individual, that God can use just simply anyone he wants to. I mean, that's something they overlook, that, they believe that God can't use who he wants to. And, you and I both say he uses who he chooses to use.
I don't think some arrogant Christian is going to override God's judgment on who he's going to pick. But, they do have that attitude. They really do. If you're not a Christian, then you just can't be given anything from the Lord, which is total garbage. It's not true. They should read their Bible. The Bible very clearly says that in the latter days that God would pour out his dreams and visions upon all flesh, not arrogant Christians. All flesh. That means even somebody like Schwarzenegger. That means somebody like No Eyes. That means anybody that God chooses, and that would mean very possibly Trump. Now, here's what Glazeson also found a connection between Trump and the word Messiah, which in Hebrew means anointed, saying his election could be connected to the arrival of the Messiah. Many Christians have felt that the day of the second coming is fast approaching, and the rabbi's findings might be further evidence of that. I found that really, really interesting because of the Omega Code. 2017 appears more and more to be the key pivot year for the world, not just Israel, for the entire world. But we are already in, right? 2017, 5777. And we've got all these sevens appearing around Donald Trump.
Well, I think it's fascinating, sure. Yeah, I agree with you. Israel, who, the Hebrew calendar is already into 5777, which is translated 2017, even though we've got, rest of this month, another month to get there for our, I guess you call it the Gregorian calendar, begins 2017. It's fascinating, and the Torah codes, and they're done by multiple people. The Torah codes, even Barry Rothman found a code, and I posted that about Trump and Hillary, and also the judgment of who Hillary and Obama were by the Torah codes and the Lord, and really, a heads up on lawlessness. And the
lawlessness and abomination too, right?
Yeah, abomination, and I mean that's kind of striking to me. That if there's ever words that kind of keywords, abomination fits in prophetically very clearly, and so does trumpets.
Yes. Yeah, it seems very, very odd to me that here we have a man running for president of the United States whose name is Trump, and a vice president's name is Pence. The Lord just gives signal after signal after signal, and it goes right by most people. They just cannot grasp how the Lord operates, but, there it is right in your face, the last Trump for the United States. And isn't that basically what the prophecies have said, that he is going to be the candidate of chaos to navigate America, even though America is still going to go down? I've read several prophecies that we might have a short delay, but America is going down.
Yeah, well, what's interesting, Stuart, you brought up the fact over and over and over, show after show, about it appears, we're at a crossroads, and how that the prophecies seem to go one way or the other. And it's kind of consternation about prophetically how this could be. And this Dr. Lance Wallnau, of course, I'm talking about his book, God's Chaos Candidate. He also
get into
said,
that a little bit.
Yeah, that basically, he wrote the book out of, it was in Israel, actually, when the Lord told him to go ahead and get it published, and that Trump was still in the election and really hadn't fallen under the great attacks that really came down upon him recently. However, what he said, he was emphatic, though, that his book was not claiming that Trump would win the election. He was simply claiming that he felt like Trump was a God's chaos candidate. In other words, the God's chosen man, the anointed man that God would use as a Cyrus during a time of great chaos. And we're about to see total chaos cover the whole planet. I know we're talking about the U.S. election, but the U.S. election is directly connected to the entire world system and every government in the world, and it links into the UN and also, well, you could say every army in the world at the same time. So with, war rumors and rumblings right on the horizon, whatever this election does is maybe which way we go. But Wallnau said that he just simply wanted to, he talked about Donald J. Trump and the American unraveling, and he's got on the face of his book a flag, the American flag, being unraveled, and he said he never meant for anyone to perceive that Trump unravels America. he said Trump comes at a time America's already been being unraveled already by the dark forces, and that Trump steps into that chaos. And he said clearly there's two roads. Which one will we pick, Trump, or will we pick the other road? We're at a crossroads, Stuart, and we can go one way or we can go the other, and that basically was what he was saying.
Well, you know, Cliff High on the bots was saying that all of these polls are fake. They're all rigged, just propaganda, that they're making all this stuff up about Hillary. And he went on and did some stuff on YouTube, and it shows Trump, and this was very crude, he said, but it just is an indication of what's really going on, that Trump wins 25-1 over Hillary Clinton. If you just went out and you took a look at the people that were coming to his rallies, the views that are on YouTube, the views that are on Facebook, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and that because of that, all of the CNN, ABC, and all that, it's all fake. It's all just propaganda. They know it. They're lying through their teeth, as they always do, because they don't even know what the truth is anymore. And so they can't do anything but lie about it. And journalism, he made a remark about that he thought that all the major media was dead after this election because the American people would realize that they had been snookered for years, but it took them this long to figure it out. And I was reading an article, I think it was the New York Times. Their advertising revenue dropped something like 97% in a quarter. They can't survive. And neither can these media. How are they going to survive if the American people figure out they're nothing but liars anyway? Why would they listen to them?
Well, Stuart, I look at it also this way. You're asking a good question. If the people realize they're all liars, which some of us have already figured that out, but
right,
you know, yeah. But on the other hand, once the rich men are through using you, are they going to fund you anymore? The rich men, just like you already said, Stuart. And if those people were wise, they would realize they are very expendable.
Yes, very expendable. So that's just weird. I don't know why I got this feeling that there's something else going on that you and I or nobody really knows about, that there's a big surprise coming. You know, there's spots in the third man or somebody that comes in, they shuffle. Hillary loses her head. Well, basically, I guess you could call that a head wound or whatever. But it more or less indicates that Hillary's out, and somebody else has to come in at the last minute, which would give Obama the right, and if we had terrorism attacks, he could suspend the elections indefinitely. Do you think he will? I mean, we've all wondered whether there will actually be an election, and I was reading an article from a military Army guy who said there isn't going to be one. Somebody asked him about it. He says there's not going to be an election. It's like they already know. Have you heard anything from anybody about that?
Yeah, I'm hearing the same thing you are. Different individuals in high places are saying they don't expect the election ever to come off, that something is going to occur, that Obama will declare an emergency and he'll just stay in power. And I assume that they will probably do that, especially if they feel like she's not going to win. And they can't have a third Obama term without Obama staying in. It's going to be chaotic if they try that, because of the fact that there appears to be a ruler against ruler happening right now within Washington, D.C. itself, within the three-letter agencies, and there are some reports. I heard Huckabee today, Mike Huckabee, talking about how that all across this country that police organizations have solidified into a pro-Trump organization, basically behind the scenes, and that the police were not going to continue to follow lawlessness. And that's what we've seen. Obama's 8 years have been nothing but lawlessness. You've called him Lucifer, and it seems pretty accurate. That's what we're seeing, and I've always said the old theory is if it's broke at the top, you can't fix it. You can fix it if it's broke down below, but when it's broke at the top, it reminds me of the old potter's wheel scenario where you just break the vessel when it's lopsided or whatever, and we may be going into a chaotic, broken vessel similitude where America's broke so bad by lawlessness and those the rich men that you can't put her back together again.
Yeah, when I was down in Texas, I had a neighbor who was a sheriff deputy, and he started investigating sex stuff and drug running, et cetera, et cetera. It seems like it all goes together. And he was told to stop. And if he didn't stop, well, he might just have an accident. And the last time I talked to him, he said he'd resigned and he was leaving with his family. So you're absolutely right. If it's broke at the top, how do you fix it? You can't. And obviously this thing is broke at the very top and probably goes down quite a few rungs from the looks of it. But I got a headline here, mutiny at the FBI. Comey warned by his own agents to indict Clinton or watch the FBI's reputation go down in flames. So is this partially what's going on? It says here, as American inches... Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to agree with you. I had been hearing the same thing, that there appears to be a division, and a lot of the FBI guys, which are not bad guys, they believe in in the law, and they're not going along with this any longer. I mean, they've about reached a point where that's enough is enough, and you and I both have talked about Art Bell's scenario about how mankind basically sits on the sidelines, especially in America, and doesn't even get off the couch to change the channel when he hates the movie. He's too lazy, and I think we've been seeing that, but I think we're beginning to see a stirring, a shaking that's producing some resistance that's rising up. Now, whether that's the Lord, something the Lord's doing that no one expected, I don't know, but we're seeing resistance, and I think it has to get to the point, though, Stuart, where people realize the country's going down the tubes, and would you rather keep your job or would you rather save the future?
Well, yeah, that's about it, and that's what people have got to come to the recognition of. What about their children? I mean, is this what they want for their kids? Do they want total slavery? Do they want total Marxism? Hillary Clinton's a Marxist. Obama's a Marxist. They're communists. I don't know why people can't see that. He's not a Christian. He either hates Christians. I don't know what he is, but he's certainly not a Christian. And he said openly that if push came to shove, he was going to take the side of Islam, of the Muslims. Well, he has.
You mentioned that. Let me read something real quick. It's a little paragraph from God's Chaos Candidates. And let me read this. It's very interesting. It says, Claire Lopez, Vice President for Research and Analysis for the Center for Security Policy, accused America's leaders of failing to recognize Islam for what it is. And she writes, our top leadership has never understood what Islam really is and implemented policies they thought were going to empower democratic forces against dictators, never realizing the reason those dictators were able to hold things together was precisely because they suppressed jihad, and that if they let up the pressure or if genuinely free elections were held, the jihadists would win or at least surge back up and cause mayhem again.
Wow. Well, that's pretty accurate. Here's a little bit from Natural News. As America inches towards open revolt over the runaway criminality and collusion of the Democrats and media, another kind of revolt is now taking place inside the FBI and probably some other agencies, according to percentage. Kucinich, he's the one who said they're releasing all this. According to multiple sources in the independent media, now the only remaining free press in America, and that's true, FBI Director James Comey was forced into announcing a reopening of the criminal investigation into Hillary Clinton's private email server by livid FBI agents who threatened to go public if Comey didn't act. Well, isn't that exactly what the New York police chief said he was going to do?
Oh, yeah.
So we got a real war going on here.
It is, and Stuart, like you said, it is classic ruler against ruler. It fits right into Jeremiah.
Yeah, and the only thing that bothers me about that is what happens immediately afterwards. Violence in the land.
Yeah.
And then it goes on a little bit further, and it says the enemies of America, of which now we have many, see the internal. This is like Dmitri Duduman. Remember where he had the prophecy and he was told that the nation turns inward. The violence becomes so great that the military gets involved. All eyes are inward, and that is when our enemies strike. And down we go. So, I don't know. I mean, in the book of Revelation it says that we go down in 1 hour, but it also says that Antichrist reigns for 1 hour, or the 10 kings reign with 1 hour with the beast. Well, 1 hour turns out to be 3.5 years. So is America looking at a slide down the old rabbit hole of total chaos and judgment unheard of for the next 3.5 years? I hope not.
Let me say, let me mention this, Stuart, just get your opinion. I was on Augusto's show the other day, and I brought this up. I said, if by chance, because I do believe, and you do too, that Benjamin Netanyahu is who he is in Israel for the reason he's there at the time he's there, and is it by chance, if the nation was going to slide, okay, if the nation was going to basically go over the cliff, so to speak, would you rather have a totally lawless individual, or would you rather have someone that would make the slide slow down maybe a little, into a little delay maybe, or not happen so quickly, or maybe a softer landing, someone the Lord would have there? And the reason for this, and the reason I'm saying this, Stuart, is, we basically, the church as a whole hasn't done its job. People are not prepared for where we're going. And is there a chance, because of a Trump, if Trump gets elected and actually takes office somewhere other in the chaos, could possibly he be doing this to do what Cyrus did earlier biblically and actually release God's people to go do what the Lord wants for now?
Well, that's very possible. I mean, there's no question that we parallel ancient Israel. No question at all. If you analyze what happened to Israel and the blessings that Israel was given, how they went into apostasy and the curses that arrived, and then you go over here to America, you find the same pattern all over again. So, yeah, he might very well be, this might be I think it is. I think it's the last Trump for the United States, and he's gonna be here. I don't know whether he's going to win or not. We've got all these prophecies that saying he will, but then we've got prophecies. I remember some woman was taken to Washington, she claimed, and Obama was sitting behind a desk with his cronies in the Islamic Brotherhood and saying, I gotta preside over the United States. This is not right. I shouldn't be leaving office. And his buddies there, the Islamic Brotherhood, well, how can you stay on? I mean, you only have 2 terms. And they came to the agreement that the Islamic Brotherhood, through probably ISIS, would create terror. And then Obama could declare martial law, suspend the election, and he would remain in office. So we've got 2 opposing viewpoints, as to what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I guess we have to wait and see. What's going on in the Middle East before we run out of time here? I mean, it seems like we got some problems developing.
Well, we do have problems developing. We've got, and there seems to be a continuous problem of Turkey. Apparently there's reports that Turkey has begun a purge of the Kurds inside Turkey and arresting a lot of government officials and anyone that's other than, I guess, than Islamic is being detained and forced out of their jobs, and there's a purging. And you had mentioned earlier when we talked the fact that it sounded like almost like an ethnic cleansing in a way that Erdogan was involved in. But Erdogan's also, got military force on the border of Iraq. He's got his tanks in northern Syria. They've taken over a region, and we reported Wednesday that he had sent some planes in to Syria, but Putin's S-300 missile systems locked onto those planes, all of them, and Erdogan turned the planes back into Turkey, and there was not the confrontation that everyone expected. Except we're seeing this. We're seeing lots of problems. Erdogan and Germany's fighting and feuding, and we've got. And I wanted to click in real quick with this too. Is you mentioned India and Pakistan, and the last we talked, they were having troubles diplomatically, and there were unrooting spies, according to the Pakistanis, to expel from Pakistan. Well, now all of a sudden they're beginning to have fighting in Kashmir again. They're shooting back and forth. So your I guess you would say intuition on India and Pakistan being a problem is beginning to grow.
Well, I hope not, because as I recall, they may be the start. I had heard some, you hear rumors and you hear people who give prophecies and stuff. You take it all with a grain of salt. But one of the things that I remember was that World War III would start in a place that nobody really expected it to start. That it wasn't going to start where Albert Pike claimed it would. It would start in an area somewhere else, but it would very soon lap over into that, and it would become basically a religious war, with the Luciferians picked against actually Islam, against Judaism, and against Christianity. That's basically what this boils down to, the Psalm 2 war. Nobody wants Jesus Christ on the throne. But, they really ought to read that last part. Yet will I set my son upon the throne. So no matter what they try and do, it's not going to work.
Yeah,
here's
it's
a headline.
Really interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to mention, Stuart. It's interesting that you're talking about India and Pakistan, because historically, our archaeology
yes.
shows that there was a nuclear war in that region, possibly pre-flood even, and that they dug up and found the evidence that there was nuclear weapons exploded in that region, and they found the bodies when they dug down and found them, and so that would be, it wouldn't set that, maybe that set a precedent. It started there once, could it not start there again? And of course we're hearing overtures that Russia and India now, because of fuel and energy situations, are forming an alliance of some kind.
Yeah, this is, here's a headline. New York Police Department reveals child sex ring in Hillary Clinton campaign, DNC involving members of Congress, federal judges, evidence of bribery, money laundering, depraved indifference, murder, and more. But what I wanted to get to, you talked about energy. And it said, based upon the troves of emails found on Wiener's laptop, legal experts now believe they can prove the Clinton Foundation was nothing but a farce set up for pay-to-play to enrich the Clintons personally. The emails allegedly established the countries involved in pay-to-play. Now, this is interesting. Saudi Arabia, Israel, Turkey, Qatar, Kazakhstan, and the Ukraine. The Qatar money is of particular interest because it seems to prove that Hillary Clinton received about $1 million from Qatar after the Syrian president Bashar Assad refused to allow Qatar to run a natural gas pipeline through Syria to supply gas to Europe. Remember how we said this is about energy, really? Shortly after that $1 million was donated, 7 experienced operatives from the CIA were dispatched to Syria on orders from the U.S. State Department, which Clinton headed. Those CIA 7 operatives created the Free Syrian Army and began efforts to forcibly overthrow President Assad of Syria. So there you go.
Yeah.
It's on the emails.
And mentioning that, Stuart, let me interject this because I know we're going to run out of time shortly. Recently, I got a Skywatch TV magazine report from a conference that was in Colorado recently, and one of the speakers, Avi Lipkin, spoke on the fall of Saudi Arabia. Now, I want to tie this into that. Remember when you had Stan Dale on your program, and he was giving us brand new intel on the underground Fallen Ones base in Saudi Arabia? I found that he also, in the second session, gave a talk on the Atlantean Antichrist.
Wow. That's interesting. I've often wondered whether Lucifer is the same as Antichrist, and I've never been convinced that it is, that they are two different individuals, that Lucifer is the head of Babylon, America, but that does not necessarily make him the same as the Antichrist himself. That'd be very interesting to find out where Stan's coming from on that.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Wow. Huh. So it seems like we got a real quagmire here, doesn't it?
I think that we do. Yeah, I think that we do, Stuart, and I think what we keep talking about, whether it's India, whether it's Saudi Arabia, and we didn't even get a chance tonight really to talk about the Unholy See, the investigation into the Vatican. But whatever we're doing today seems to dovetail back into pre-flood times and what occurred then, and we're seeing this maybe as Ecclesiastes says, that the new under the sun, we're going through the same thing all over again.
Yeah, human beings never learn because they're fallen creatures. In fact, they say they forget, I think, every 57 years you've really expunged all your memories of bad stuff, and so you go plowing into it again. That's basically where we're at. We're going to plow back into some really bad stuff. I mean, the prophecies against the United States are horrible. They're horrific. And, people just won't bow down. They will not bend their knee to the Creator. They're distancing themselves more and more, it seems to me. I remember when 9/11 occurred, and our ministry suffered greatly.
Yeah. Because
people were afraid to be associated. They didn't want to be associated with it. They're scared. Well, if you're scared of your government, you've already been beaten.
Yeah.
You're already done.
Well, Stuart, just to comment on what you just said, I get emails all the time and reports that people are too afraid to even write an email to anybody anymore. They're too afraid to, I think fear is really what we're running into when there's no responses, there's no replies. People are afraid to contact you. I mean, they might support you, but they're afraid to send you a check because somebody might look into that. And, I think we're running into it again. 9/11 happened, and even this election period, people are even afraid to say they support Trump. Have you heard of that?
Yes. What really bothers me about all that is if they're afraid to even email you or send you a donation or do something like that, How in the world are they going to stand up against the forces of evil when their life is on the line, when their children's lives are on the line, their wives, their husbands? If they won't stand up, they really need to go examine themselves. They're not in the faith. They're not even real. I mean, you might not like dying for the faith, but that's what it's going to come to. That's what the guillotine is really all about. Happened before, it's going to happen again. But here's a headline, maybe we can close with it. See what you think. Fears they'll start a war to divert the attention. The evidence in the case is so strong, so completely devastating, there are now legitimate fears that the players are going to start a nuclear war that gets everybody killed rather than come clean. Now, why wouldn't Hillary, at this point, come forward and just say, you know, in the interest of the nation, I cannot any longer be part of this, and I am stepping down. You don't hear that.
No.
All you hear is hateful, venomous rhetoric, and it's even coming now from Obama. What say you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I say you're exactly right. We're hearing the same rhetoric, but at the same time, we're seeing multiplied lawlessness. I mean, we're just literally seeing lawlessness being multiplied from the top. And they're not even hiding it anymore. It's out in the open now, Stuart, and people really do know. I mean, it's available to all the news, even though only a very few will talk about it. Washington's totally lawless, and all they care about is their power and their money, and the rich men control that.
Yeah, and they're not about to step down without pulling all the stops out. And I think they'd probably like nuclear urban renewal. They'd just as soon kill off quite a few people because they're useless eaters or cannon fodder, which, you know, in the New World Order is going to be so friendly. Maybe close off with this one. Fire sign. Do you suppose they would really go to that extent if nothing else works to disrupt this election, to have a fake arrival that Carol Rosen spoke of because Juana von Braun had told her the last card, Carol, he said, the last card, remember, it's the invasion card, it's the alien card, where they were going to stage a fake arrival, and he did say to her, it's all a lie. Every bit of it's a lie. So here we go. Here they're talking about, and this is from the Democratic National Committee, they're talking about setting up a fire sign project, and it's a fake arrival using Bluebeam, Project Bluebeam. Would they go to that extent, do you think?
Well, Stuart, I did get a report from someone that monitors Israel very closely, and they are thoroughly convinced that the event recently over Israel in the sky that had the strange cloud over Jerusalem and the trumpet sound, they're convinced that was the Bluebeam Project working.
I think they are. I think these floating cities, these airliners that people have videotaped flying along, then all of a sudden they stop, then they back up, and then they disappear. So, yeah, this is going to be the strong delusion of the Lord. He warned people about it. Anyway, Larry, thanks for being on. How do people reach you?
LarryWTaylor.org. That's LarryWTaylor.org.
Well, we certainly appreciate you coming on. Folks, go visit Larry's website. He keeps everybody up to date. And I'll tell you what, we need to be kept up to date. This stuff is moving so fast. I'm going to try and get on Monday just before the election if we can. Things may be already out of control by then. Anyway, we thank everybody for listening. Thank you again, Larry, for being with us. And we'll see you all Monday if we can. Good night.